Good morning. This is Liz from Augusta. I'm here with Nick today. It's dark. None of the employees are here. It's rainy outside and it was so dark I could hardly see to get the generator started this morning. But we have something very exciting we want to share. And while I was on my way to work today, I was thinking that life happens in all these little stackable things, everyday occurrences and jobs and people and life. And sometimes we miss the great things in the ordinary. And I would say that right now is a time when something great has happened in Nick's life and he's in a transition period. And we've always said that we may not be in each other's lives forever, but while we are, we should help each other be the best versions of ourselves we can be. And we are very ordinary people living ordinary lives, and we are just trying to bring value to you and to let you know that you're not alone out there in the hard grind of every day, because we do it every day, and so we know what you're feeling and experiencing. But the reason I'm here with Nick today is because when we interviewed last time, what month was that?
I think that was April.
So a long time ago. It's September 22nd today, and so much has happened in Nick's life, and we had talked about that we would interview again right before you started your franchise. So I'd like to go a little more depth about Nick today also, because when people do deep work on themselves to change, that is only how things like this happen. And so we could jump to the middle kind of when you decided, made the decision that you wanted to have a franchise, kind of how that came about, and then we can jump back a little more and we'll go from there.
Okay, cool. Brad and I were talking about this recently, actually. It was in January. We were on a snow route, and it was like the 15-hour mark.
Yep.
We were very tired, and we were
Yes.
just having these discussions in the truck, and we were just talking about maybe what if, you know?
Right.
And I didn't think much of it at the time, but it really got me thinking. I was like, that's interesting that we're having this conversation. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think it was a possibility. Mm-hmm. And then I just started learning more, and then just kind of thinking about it more, and then just kind of taking a step back and looking at my life and where I'm at. It's like what do I want?
Right.
What would I be doing if I wasn't doing that?
Right.
Which would be just still working here, and not really progressing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that conversation was really the catalyst. That's what got the gears spinning. And then over those first few months of spring, training people and just looking at things from a different aspect, just the whole dynamic about how people work together. And it's am I even someone that's able to be able to lead a group of people? And I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially after reading all the audiobooks that we have. So I think in April I still wasn't 100% committed. I was thinking about it every day at that point. And within the next month or two after our interviews, I definitely had it solidified in my mind. So
yeah, was it as you were listening to things, did you get the courage that you thought, okay, I could manage a business, I'm smart enough to run my numbers, I know how to do the jobs, because now you've project managed, you've done a lot of big jobs, mowing and training. And so did you think then, okay, I have the confidence to do this, or did everything kind of come together? I've been saving money and I think I could go for it.
The latter. I think everything did kind of come together, because I spent the last year kind of living in my vehicle.
Yes.
Just as a way to make a huge cushion of money, and then be able to be okay, now what? Because money kind of opens doors, right?
Right.
I couldn't wake up without saving any money and then decide to do something. So it's
exactly.
So I was planning for something big, some big move in my life. And we started franchising last August, and it wasn't even a thought. I was already living in the van at that time.
Yeah.
I had just moved in. So I was saving money just to be able to do that. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember the second part of your question. I don't know, I forgot.
No, that was it. That was it, the answer. When we're together every day working on so many jobs, we talk about a lot of stuff, and Nick asks a lot of questions about how things are working, why are we doing this, and Nick's personality is definitely a type A, and because he lives alone, He doesn't have people like bugging him all the time and everything. So if he was frustrated or tired, there's so many elements that you guys will understand of the day-to-day. But we'll talk a little bit about you living in a van and what brought you to that decision rather than to get a place. Or like, were you thinking that I don't deserve more, or were you thinking if I'm going to get ahead in life, I need to come down to nothing?
Okay, interesting question. No one ever asked me this. So, yeah, like my whole like high school to like the first couple years out of high school was not surrounded with the best people. And even when I started working here, that was April of 2018. Was it? 2019. It was 2019. And you know, I'd still have roommates. I was still living with people, and I just didn't get along with these people. They're a bad influence on me, like their habits. And so that was kind of a transition in my life. Basically, I was just trying to figure out like how to put myself in a better environment.
Yeah.
Because you kind of are who you hang with.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and then when I started working here, it's like kind of unbelievable how like positive and supportive everyone is, and like it was just like a really hard adjustment. Even though it doesn't seem like it would be.
Have people that actually care.
Yeah, and I was like, man, like everyone just wants to be like positive every day and like just progress forward in life. Like we're all just doing our same thing, our own thing together.
Yeah.
So it was kind of premeditated. That July is when Charlie and I we traded our vehicles. That was great. It worked out great for both of us. So yeah, we traded our vehicles. I spent a couple months putting it together, and I moved in there. But it was definitely the plan. It wasn't like just like me trying to be sad and like go live on my own in a vehicle. A lot of people think it's kind of weird, but it financially it makes a ton of sense. You know. The lifestyle aspect of it's kind of weird, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I went into it knowing that it was like a 1-year temporary thing, and I just hit the one year mark like this month.
Wow. So how is your van laid out to be your home?
So I have kind of everything you would need. You know, I have like rechargeable batteries that like run the lights and stuff. I have like a little water pump and 2 like 7-gallon water tanks that I fill up in the front here. I have a bed. It slides out or it folds up, and
you built this, right?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool because like my girlfriend and I can go camping on the weekends. Like, I don't know, it just kind of works. But yeah, that's like really what was able like that's why I was able to save up so much money so fast.
Right.
So essentially, like everything I've made the last year is just like saved, which is really cool. You know, it's like when you're renting, it's like you have so many random expenses, and then like also I wasn't in the headspace of saving money back then, so I kind of went from like 0 savings to 100%. So.
Yeah, and to have a lifestyle like that is definitely sacrificial and has some challenges. We went through the snowstorm with that.
Yeah.
And I remember texting him like, "Hey, are you warm?" And you're like, "As long as I stay under my covers and don't climb out, I'm okay."
Yeah.
And then the one time he tried to make. This one time he comes in, he's like, "Do you have any Lysol?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Do you have any of this?" And I'm like, "No." And then I asked what happened. Do you want to tell what happened?
Yeah. So, this is horrible. This was like a couple months actually. So I burnt my dinner. I fell asleep while I was cooking my dinner, and it was like the heat. It was like while it was really cold, so it was really warm, and I was all up in my covers, and I just laid there. And eventually fell asleep, and I woke up like a couple hours later, and I was just like, because the heater was still running, I was like, no, my dinner. And I looked at it, and it was completely burnt, and it was black beans. So
nice.
And it created the worst smell, and this was like January, February. It was like the worst smell imaginable, just staying the entire van for like a month or 2. So that made it even worse.
So every day he would come to work, and he'd open all the doors. And you know how ghetto this looks. All day long, the doors to the van are open because he's trying to air it out while they're all out working. That was crazy. So it's not an easy decision. But nowadays, if you took a young person that was, how old were you?
I'm 21.
That was 21. They all have I'm not going to say all, because we have some awesome people in the world, an entitlement that somebody's supposed to take care of them. They need to have a bed, and they need to have a warm warm place to be and somebody making their food and all that type of thing. And so the circumstances that brought you to that and made you that person obviously had to be very unusual. And so I want to go back to your childhood a little bit. It was a challenging one and difficult, but you know, as little kids, we don't know what's normal and what's not normal, right?
Right.
So if you could tell us a little bit about your family and the family dynamic, and to bring you up to a point like that where you would feel like you could live in a van, because some people would think it was because they have had a difficult life and they're a victim and they're worthless and they don't deserve more. And then some people like you are making a decision from a completely different place.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah, well, the living in the van thing, it's all psychological. I mean, like logistically, it's a little bit more work, but with a house, you have more to clean. You just don't have to do it as often. But yeah, so going back to my childhood, like I was born in Texas. I lived there for 8 years. My parents divorced when I was 4, and like that was kind of like when I was just like gaining memory of life.
Right.
You know, before that like didn't exist. But yeah, so they divorced when I was 4, and I didn't know really what to think of it at the time. Like everyone's parents kind of get divorced, so it was fine. And that was just when I was going to school, and like it's like as the years went on, I just noticed more of a divide between me and other people, because I was just operating on a different spectrum
from other kids.
From other kids, yeah, other people my age. So I've always been like a pretty social person. I consider myself an ambivert. I could be introvert or extrovert, and I was always great with people.
Yeah, you're a chameleon.
Yeah, great. I love that. I love that.
Depending on the circumstances, you are what you have to be.
Yeah, adaptable.
Yes.
That's really cool. Yeah, so, where was it go? Oh, yeah, so, just being in a divorced family, it became really toxic at times. And, like, one thing that I credit my mom with is that she was really open with my brother and I. The whole time about the entire like process, like what was going on. So I learned about like child support really early. Because there was a time period where we lived in a mobile home park right after they divorced.
Were you and your brother with your mom?
Yeah, and my sister lived with us at this time, but she wasn't from the same parent, so she's my half sister. Same mom, different dad. But my brother and I each shared a dad. Yeah, so it was really interesting, like learning from a young age about like child support and how that stuff works. Because like my mom was making like $5 an hour, working at like Dollar General. Luckily her first husband, my sister's dad, was a good guy, and he just paid his money every month. Like, it's the right thing to do. Yeah, and so we like that money had to get used for all of us a lot of the times.
Right.
Because in Texas that was minimum wage was like five something.
So you were dependent on that money because your dad, was he not consistent in paying?
No, he kind of had a temperament about the whole situation. So he kind of disappeared for there was a few years where there was just like no contact, and he was just upset that my mom divorced him, I guess. But so there was a few years there, and then I think we finally like figured out where he was and connected with him, and when I was like 8 years old, so a few years had gone by, and yeah, so he legally obviously had to start paying child support, and then we had to start visitation rights, and that was a whole nother thing, because he lived up here in Washington, and it was just interesting. It's like I didn't really know my dad at that point. Like he had disappeared right when I was like starting like
this. So now you're with a stranger who you're related to.
Yeah.
You're supposed to call dad and be respectful of. And he's a stranger.
Very odd.
Yeah.
Very weird adjustment period. So my brother and I had to start visitation just so we could get child support.
Right.
That was part of the agreement. So we came up here a couple times. Oh no, the first time my brother and him didn't get along at all.
Is your brother younger than you?
He's a year and 8 months older than me.
Okay.
So they didn't get along at all. And my brother's always been like not a mama's boy, but like, you know, he more identifies with my mom than he ever would my dad. They're like two completely different people. Yeah, so he quit visiting, and my dad was okay with it, I guess.
Do you still pay child support for him?
Yeah, he would, yeah, because he had to. But he didn't want to say anything about the visitation thing. But yeah, so I continue to go back, just because like I was always curious about like I wanted that father figure, right?
Yeah,
like everyone
exactly.
kind of wants that. So yeah, I don't know, not to go like too in depth, but essentially I visited a few times. I moved up to Washington, and that was like a huge shift in my life. That was like going into 6th grade.
Wow, middle school.
Yeah.
And did you move in with him?
Yeah.
And was he married again?
Yeah, he's married. Remarried.
And did they have kids too?
She had his new wife had one kid that was like a few years older than me.
Okay, so you're moving into a whole different world.
Whole different world. Yeah, and it, this is what I credit my mom with too. Again, is that she, from that early age, like she just trusted me to like make decisions.
Wow.
And so I was kind of naive back then, and so I was like, I came up to Washington in the summers. It was all beautiful, and like they had this like rental lake house, like everything was great. And I was like, Mom, I want to go live with my dad. And she cried. She was like disappointed.
Yeah.
But she was like, okay. And then I felt bad as soon as she started crying. And I was like, no, like it's fine. And she's like, no, it sounds like you want to. Can't say if that was a mistake or not, but you know that's what led me here.
Right.
Yeah. So, and essentially it's just like one life and another.
Totally.
Yeah. And it completely.
Because your dad was a successful man, right? It wasn't as if there was no money to take care of you, or you were, living poorly.
Yeah, he had always worked really hard physically, doing like roadside work. I'd see him wake up at 3 in the morning and get home at like 7 or 8 at night, and then eat, go to bed, do the same thing. Like that was his everyday. So yeah, it was a really weird adjustment period for me. I went from having a lot of friends in school to having none, and then just, it kind of like, something in my mind, it kind of just like took me out of, or I just started analyzing people and like what everything is, like society, what is life, like all these crazy like deep questions at that young age. So that was when I kind of learned just to like think more about like what, I don't know, what everything is.
Yeah. So let's move forward to when you were in high school. I remember you telling me that I don't know if they moved, but you said you had to make a decision whether you wanted to finish high school or not.
Yeah. So during that time, so my dad and I started having issues.
How old were you then? Like 16?
Yeah, I was like 16. I was driving. We started having issues, or we had issues the whole time.
I'm sure. Yeah. No security.
No. Very, we didn't connect on an emotional level. I never really called him dad, which is kind of interesting. But, so eventually, it was always about child support and money. And so he had finally stopped paying child support for my brother, who had turned 18 at this time.
Right.
And so, my mom, didn't have a lot of money, and just to spite her, was like, oh, well, now you have to pay child support for me. Living with my dad.
What a word.
Yeah, and legally she would have had to, and it would have been a lot of money.
Right.
And it's like the house she lived in, it was built in early 1900s, and it didn't have any insulation, and in the winter you could see your breath inside the house, and it cost so much money just to run the heat, and
Now this is a heavy burden for a kid, because your mom is suffering, and now she's going to have to pay for this. Yeah.
So and I was always I will protect my mom that. It wasn't a difficult decision for me. It was something I knew that I had to do. So he essentially or I gave him an ultimatum, and I was I'm not gonna sit around and watch you do this to my mom, because it was always just this ugly game of money.
Yeah.
I really question to this day if I ever if my dad ever cared about me as a person.
Right.
It's very, very odd to live with someone like that for so long. But essentially I made the decision because he got really mad. Actually, he made the decision.
So you left. He told you to get out?
Yeah.
So then he didn't have to pay, and she didn't have to pay. He was supposed to, though, till you're 18.
Yeah, well, I was living with him, right? But then once I did move in with my mom, I had to move in with her in order to legally receive child support, because I couldn't support...
Right.
She couldn't support me, and I couldn't support myself going to school.
Right.
And doing whatever. So
Yeah.
So I moved to Aberdeen, and it was like an hour away from where I went to school, like 60 miles. And yeah, so I had a girlfriend at the time. Like I spent a lot of time with her. I had friends. I had track, and I was driving back and forth. Like I was really busy at that time.
Yeah.
And it was probably good for me at that time, because it really kind of distracted me from the situation. And then I lost my driver's license.
Oh no!
Yeah, I was driving a little too fast. When you have like 2 hours of driving every day, you
get distracted.
Yeah. Well, you kind of just drive a little bit faster, make it an hour and a half. So I lost my license, and then the following school year, I didn't have my license for 5 months, and I had to ride a bus 4 hours every day. Because they only took the back roads to pick everyone up in all these random cities out in the county. So it was 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening.
So you could have just given up and become a loser and a victim, but you wanted to graduate.
Yeah, well, there was a time, that was a really, really crucial time period.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So like the first pivotal time period in my life is when I moved to Washington. It's like everything changed.
Yep.
And then the next 6 years, and then during this time, it's very odd. I would ride the bus with like just tweaker, weird people saying weird things to me, and like just every single day I'm like, I just want to go to school and like be normal.
Yes,
right? And, I was so different. None of my friends knew, like they couldn't even comprehend what I was going through. I would like talk about it, and they'd be like, that sucks. Yeah. Like that's all they would have to say.
You can't even relate.
Well, because you can't. Yeah, and then, like I couldn't hold that against them.
Exactly.
But yeah, so during this time period, like my girlfriend and I broke up, and like when in high school, I guess that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, your first one.
Yeah, especially because she was there for me throughout the whole process.
Right.
Yeah, so I was just alone. Like I couldn't hang out with friends because I had this bus schedule, and like it was just awful.
Yeah.
So I had this awesome teacher, Mr. LeDuc. He would allow me to come into his class early in the morning and like talk about myself, like my situation. And he was really just kind of like someone to talk to for me, and it was really nice. He had a ton of great, like, insightful thoughts about life.
That's so good.
Yeah, and I really do think that talking to him during that time period was crucial for me. And so it's like just having people in your life that you're that are able to walk you through difficult times.
Just a human who cares.
Yeah, or someone to influence you.
Yes,
if you think about it, every person on this planet is a product of other people's influences.
It's true.
You are a product of all the people that you have come in contact with your whole life. It's so interesting. And everyone's so different because we all have different experiences. So he told me to read this Ghandi autobiography that was like over 600 pages. And I was like, what? I don't want to do that. But I committed to doing it on the bus every day. And that was kind of the moment that I was at like just a low, and I was reading the book and just hearing some of the stuff that happened to Ghandi, just his entire life, like my problems times 100. And I think that's great. Every time someone's going through something bad, I think they should hear about someone else's problems. Yeah, because it really makes you feel a lot better.
It sure does. And even like when you talk about the other kids that didn't relate, then there's other kids that are being abused at home or whatever, and they can't talk about it at all.
Yep.
They're just coming and suffering, and they're listening like, wow, Nick kind of gets it, but they can never talk about it, and they're hurting.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And like there's just a huge disconnect. Like it's weird. Like when kids are in high school, like most people are like really immature.
Yeah, they're just trying to find themselves.
Yeah, no one can talk about like life thoughts like that because they've never experienced anything. But yeah, so that book, that was kind of the moment where I was like, I'm either going to sink or swim. And after reading that book, I was like, if he could do it, so could I.
Yeah.
Because my problems aren't even that bad.
Yeah, so did you make any decisions after you read that book?
Yeah, I did. I always, in school, like, I always just kind of coasted. I just kind of did, like, enough to get by. And wasn't really exemplary in anything. So from that moment on, I was like, okay, like first things first, like I'm gonna like shape up my grades. Like they weren't bad. They were like B's and C's, like average. But I was like, wait, let's get straight A's. Like let's really attack
this. Pick a goal and go.
Yeah. So that semester I got straight A's and 1 F.
Whoa, what was the F in?
I failed math. I'm just really bad at math, which is interesting that I want to be a business owner.
Which is so awesome.
Yeah, I guess.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah. So and then in track, physically I was pushing myself, and that was a great outlet.
Yeah.
Every day after school and the track meets and all this stuff. Yeah, so I eventually got my license back. Like grades were getting good, track was good, and it's just been on the up and up since there.
Yeah. So we interviewed Nick before about when he came here. He was actually working at. We live close to Mount Baker, and you were working on ski lifts there, and had a lot of different kinds of influence there too. And then he came to us. If you want to go back and listen to the old interview. But today I want to focus now from the decision that Nick has made to become a franchisee. Mike made an offer to some of the employees, but you had already been saving and you did not know this. So the franchise fee, what is typically the franchise fee?
Typically it's like $9,000.
Yeah, but for the regular person?
Yes.
It's $9,000
yeah,
to get in?
Yeah, so Mike's incredible offer is like, if you've worked here over a year, like he's gonna waive that fee. Like he will, like you won't have to pay that fee, and then you won't have to pay the fee for, I think it's the first 3 months, or I don't know the particulars on that. But the first year is you pay about half as much in royalties each month than the next
Till you can
9
get your
years beyond
marketing
that.
and get back on your feet.
Yeah, and it's like it's really geared for you to be able to be successful. Like he's not trying to like milk people for money, you know.
Yeah.
So
Mike really wants the employees to succeed, so he gave them this offer, but he said they'd have to present their business plan for the future and what they would want to do. So a couple weeks ago, you actually presented your plan to Mike, and then he had you present it to the team. So how did you formulate that?
Shout out to Mike for helping me format that. When I made it, it was just like numbers everywhere. It was really hard to look at. But yeah, so essentially all of the content that Mike puts out, like if you look at it, Business Bootcamp, he has like 300 episodes.
Yeah.
A lot of information
Yeah.
all in
and
there.
It's packed. It's not just surface stuff.
Yeah, and it's just like 300 different topics, and it covers so much. Yeah, and the YouTube videos that he makes, and then landscape business course, and essentially, like he has put so much information out there that someone like me is able to start it from not knowing anything and start absorbing that information,
Right.
and come to the point where I feel confident that, like, just with the information that he's given me, I could go out and do the same thing.
Yeah, because every question that would come to mind, he'd be like, oh yeah, okay, he said this, so that resolves that, and he said this, so I would have to do this, and I would have to do this. So then you come to a place where you're like, okay, I got this. I can do this.
And so that's what I did a lot of the time, was just like listen to what he's saying, and then like just think about it in my head.
And then you and some of the other guys, you know, they think about service autopilot and all the stuff we do in the office, and then the feeling is right away, whoa, I don't know how to do any of that part.
I still don't. I don't know anything about service autopilot.
But that's the awesome part, is that command is here for you. And when you become a franchisee, you come for the training, and it's like 3 days of power-packed information. And the wonderful thing we do now is we actually set up your account and get everything set up for you, your automations and all that, so that you're set up just like us.
Yeah, so it's like I have to do estimates, and I have to do field work.
Yep, and then we've made you videos that you can watch, you know, piece by piece of us telling you, just walking through the steps of how to do everything. So you don't have to do what we did. So when Mike and I started with Service Autopilot, we spent a whole winter of frustrations and built the automations and got completely used to Service Autopilot and all their systems and the glitches and all that. And now, you know, it has glitches, but every software does, and we really appreciate having Service Autopilot. And yeah, so what would be your biggest apprehension going into this?
Biggest apprehension is myself, but then I also feel like that's my strongest asset, which is really interesting. But yeah, like you know, everyone has that little voice in the back of their head that like tells them no, and like wants to pull them back into a place of comfort, and it's like, no, like why don't you just like stay here and like make your money and like go spend it on things that make you happy in the short term, and like never like grow your financial portfolio past being able to live paycheck to paycheck.
Has your feeling about money changed from the way you viewed it as a kid and now? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, not 100%. So like as a kid, like I knew money made things happen.
Yeah.
Like we didn't, like there would be times, it's not like I ever starved, but like there would be times where the food was hard to come by because the way the money was coming in, like
wasn't here yet.
Yeah, the paychecks or the child support. And so like money made things happen,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
money buys time, and it buys things that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, did I answer your question?
No, yeah, you
Okay,
did good.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so your feeling about money is different now. Your view about money, you know you need it, but it's not a relationship thing that governs relationships.
Yeah, so the way I'm trying to look at money right now is that money buys time. So like all this money I've saved up over the last year, like that money is going to be used over the next 10 years to buy me time in life.
Right.
I actually did the math last weekend with my girlfriend, and like if you work for 40 years as an employee, 40 hours a week, you spend 75% of your days working and 25% of your days off over the 40 years.
Wow.
That ratio is terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah, three to four. Like 75% of your life is dedicated to making things happen for other people, and then 25% is dedicated to
building
you.
their businesses.
Yeah, and
exactly.
then 25% is you for your weekends, and that's why people live for the weekend.
So when you put this plan together, did you put together how you would start, how much you would spend, and then like a growth plan of like when you would buy your truck, buy all your equipment, and then how much growth you would want to have by a specific time?
Yeah, so I planned out the whole year.
For 1 year, he asked you to present a plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a really helpful source was the Mount Vernon videos. So yeah, like.
We'll give a little plug for that.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Mike, just to prove that this model is so effective, and just to prove that like we're coming from a good place, he created a franchise in Mount Vernon that pays full franchise fees, everything that a normal franchise would have to do, and he has a owner, operator, manager.
A general manager.
Yeah, manager down there. And so he started documenting that journey, and he posts it P&L to the public.
From the moment we decided to move forward with that.
Yeah, and it like just seeing that, I was like,
it's like a gift to anybody who wants to start a business.
It seriously is. Like people would pay. I feel like people would pay a lot of money for this information.
Yeah.
And Mike gives it out for free.
Right.
And it's like if you don't take advantage of that, like, why not?
I think a lot of people are just too proud. They think they can figure it out themselves.
Interesting.
But when you have a proven model of somebody who's done it, and they're so willing to share, it's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, pride gets set aside.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like what's the point in like blazing your own new path and like really going through the struggle, losing money, like just having a difficult time the whole way. But like we live in a world where information is so readily available. It's like if you don't take advantage of that, you're living in the 1900s, you know?
So Nick is not afraid to travel. He likes to get out and do adventurous things. And so how did you pick your territory? I mean, there's the whole United States and Canada.
Interesting. So this was like a 5-month process.
Yes.
I just every day just like thinking about it in my head. It's like where. So I ran through a bunch of variables because like I like hotter, drier climates, but I also love snowboarding in the winter. It's something I'm really passionate about. And I love all the forest around here and the mountains and stuff. So there really wasn't a whole lot of options. Actually, it was kind of easy.
But you took the weekend, and where did you go to check it out?
So I went to Idaho because I was like, man, it seems really cool over there. Like northern Idaho, it's like this one area, and then there's just surrounding woods everywhere. And I was like, man, that just seems killer because like I'm not a big city person. Like eventually I want to have property and live out in the country. But yeah, so I went there and it was okay. But like I started, when we were there, we were like, okay, let's go on a hike. And I started searching for trails. There was none.
Wow.
Like woods everywhere, just untouched wilderness, no trails even.
Wow.
And I was like, man. But the Washington's cool because like we have Eastern Washington, which is like whole different climate, desert.
Hot and dry.
Yeah, and then we have the ocean. Then we have like mountains in the Olympics and in the Cascades, and so like personally, there's a lot of things that I find enjoyable here, and just in general, like Washington's a pretty good place to live. Like, everyone from California is coming up here. Just everyone from everywhere is coming here because they realize like it's
a great place to retire.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you kind of choose on the demographic of an area as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did a little bit of research. I did a lot of research into like different cities in Washington and really like learning about like the market there and like what would be conducive to like starting a business.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to start a business somewhere where everyone's broke and
exactly.
doesn't,
yeah.
you know, that lives in rentals and doesn't have money to.
Wouldn't want your services.
Yeah. That wouldn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found out Marysville was the fastest growing city in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so there's us in Bellingham, and then there's Tim in Mount Vernon.
mm-hmm.
And then how much space is there between the Mount Vernon one and the Marysville?
It's like 20 miles.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it would
it's not that
be
far.
At least 1 or 2 territories.
Yeah,
next.
so I'm like the furthest territory. So like I'm the closest territory that can be put in Mount Vernon.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry.
So
next
if
to
one
Mount
could
Vernon.
be purchased next to Mount Vernon, it would have been yours.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so there, and then you know it'll just keep going down from there.
Right.
So yeah.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, it is.
I'm happy about that because he won't be a total stranger. He'll still be in the same
close. That was part of my
state.
strategic plan.
And then he won't be forever away. So it's September now. So when will you actually have your, like, pay your first fees and become your franchisee training? Because you're an employee, you don't have to pay the first fees, right?
Mm-hmm.
But typically somebody would pay their first fees. But when do you actually phase into your training and then start to plan and start your business?
So December 3rd and 4th is the initial training that like you're going to be
Yep.
training me.
So exciting.
Yeah, and then starting in January, this was kind of Mike's idea because I was planning on just starting in March and just going full force into it. But it would be a good idea to start in January and kind of start out really slow and like not a lot of marketing and just kind of make a couple relationships.
So move to your demographic?
Yeah,
Is that what you're going to do?
move there in January, and then spend a couple months and like just try and bring in like a couple $1,000s in revenue. Like that'd be great.
Yeah.
So, and it you know it would give me that experience of like okay like I'm here, this is what I'm doing, and like instead of just being thrown into it.
Will you get another kind of job, any job, anywhere? And then just try to get used to the people and the environment and feel them out and that type thing?
Yeah. You know, potentially
And
getting
then
a
start your
part-time job somewhere and
Got
then
it.
just like kind of like trying to build relationships on the side, like cold call people. And
That's awesome.
just try and get 1 or 2 clients or just get something and create that relationship.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
I feel
So
like,
you would do that in January instead of just trying to dive in and rush.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a lot better
Smart.
of a plan.
Yeah.
It'll build confidence in me so that I'm not...
Maybe you could get winter services from some of the people that have lawn care services, so then when they start their lawn care, you would be their new person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the goal. Winter services are awesome. Like we started doing that like really big last season. So.
Yeah, and the nice thing when you start your franchise is you don't have you don't have employees to take pictures of, you don't have social media to get out there and advertise yourself, but the nice thing is when you're a franchise, you have all of our stuff. So you can screenshot anything I post and then you can repost it with your own words and your own area and your own phone number. So you have a lot of resources right off the bat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I want to come back to this one point before we wrap up, and that's what you and I have had a lot of really awesome, good conversations throughout the last year. And some of you may have the question, when you think of somebody living in their vehicle, it doesn't seem very professional.
No.
And so you would look at this person and you'd be like, I wouldn't want them to run my business because obviously they don't even have a home and they don't even know how to take care of themselves. So we had this discussion once because I told him, I would like to see you have enough self-respect to have a place where you could go home and have a bed and have something good to eat and something warm.
Warm shower.
Because what was happening was he would come to work and hangry, but you don't always know why.
Yeah.
You come to work, but well, you didn't sleep good and you were so cold and you didn't have a good lunch. And so it's really important in our industry to eat. And a lot of times you just need a little bit of protein. And, you know, there's been times the guys will come in and I'm like, nope, we're not even talking until you've eaten something. Protein bar or something. And so I was suggesting to him to try to find a place. So that's what you did. You looked around, tried to find a place, and then you decided to just stay in the van. But you started bringing a good lunch and being more dependable about that to where you had enough food to deal with difficult customers or all the customers all day and then come back and still communicate with us like humans. And I noticed at this one point that Nick would just come to work so frustrated. And it's something to be really sensitive about, I think, employers and other team members, is find out why. So Nick would come in And he is a high performer, type A. He wants things where they're supposed to be and stop breaking stuff, people. And because that's the way he is. And he would take care of his tools and he would put everything away. But the way other people were acting was so frustrating. So we have a board where you can come in and you can put on the board, you know, what needs to be fixed. And Nick would, everybody would be there. He'd stomp in the morning, write his thing on the board, meaning something was broken and you need to fix it, you need to stop doing this. That's basically what he was saying. And stomp back out and have his day and come back in, write something else on the board at the end of the day and leave. Well, no matter what, like, you're either a leader or you're not in life.
Yeah.
And even when a leader is not doing good, it still doesn't matter. Like, everything they do is still influencing other people. And that is a difficult thing, to know that you have that kind of like weight on you, but you just are. And you by nature are just a leader because you're taking care of yourself, you got your goals and you're moving along, and then people watch that, and no matter what, they're influenced by it. So you either lead in a bad way or a good day, or a good way. So that day, I text Nick and I was like, man, you're going to take a couple days off and you're going to think about this. I said, you are bringing some kind of poison here because you're so mad and frustrated with people. And I get it. I had the same frustrations. Like, we're working so hard to create systems and people are like, hello, clean out the trailer. And you're not setting the next guy up for success. And we're doing paid for performance. So Nick would come in there, you need to take 15 minutes off so-and-so's pay.
I'd say it politely.
But he would just be so frustrated, which I get. And but I had texted Nick and told him that like something had to change, and you're like, no, I don't need any days off. I'm good. I'm fine. And I'm like, so you just have to think about other people, and you know, they're just people, and you got to be patient with people and stuff. And I don't know, what decision did you make that week?
So that week, like, I noticed it too. Like, I was just short with people. I didn't really want to talk to anybody. I just wanted to work and like get off of work. Yeah. And I was like, man, like, at first I was like, I'm just upset this week for some reason. But then it was like a couple week time period, where I was just getting way too frustrated with things. Sorry. Okay. I was just getting way too frustrated with things, and so I appreciate that you were able to confront me about it. And you're like, hey, listen, like, your attitude's contagious. Like, we're all trying to be positive, and like it's kind of bringing the team down. Yeah. And then you told me to take a day off, and I was like, no.
Please no.
Yeah. So then once you told me that, I really had to just take a second and like think about like the attitude that I'm bringing here, because it is such a great place to work and everyone's always in such a great mood, and I was going completely against like what I find so great about this place. So it was a couple weeks where I just was I don't know, I was just like upset, like I just sick of the band, like just, I don't know, just a lot of things. And what did I read? I think it was Extreme Ownership.
Yeah, did I tell you to read that one again that week?
I'm not sure, but I read that whole series after that because like I do have influence here, and I like people aren't gonna respect me if I don't like come across well to them. So it was really important, especially if I'm going to be a leader in my own business, to like, even if things are bothering me outside of work, is to not bring that attitude into the workplace, because it really is contagious. Like if I get on a job with someone and like they're tired and they didn't sleep a lot the night before, like it kind of brings me down subconsciously a little bit. Like then I slow down with them. But if they're like, all right, man, like let's knock this out, it's like we just go fast, and that it's so contagious. So I had to realize that I needed to not.
So let me speak from here on my end though. I realized, okay, you have a high performing person. He wants to be a franchisee, and he's annoyed and irritated. And so I told Mike, I said, he needs a plan. Like we got to start like involving him in more talk about the future, so it doesn't seem so mundane and he doesn't seem so like trapped at all. Leaders need goals. They need something to push towards to be motivated. So I had told him, I said, start asking anything you want. So if something happens during the day about service autopilot, how does it work on our end? Start asking questions, start putting together a plan. And I think Mike might have talked to you right around there more about the future and a timeline and that sort of thing. And then also, I had let Nick know, start thinking like you're an owner. So pretend when I give you somebody to train that all of their success depends on you, because if you have an employee, you need them to go out and perform when you're not looking and make money for themselves and make money for the company and take care of your customers so you don't lose them. And so I had told him to listen to the third book. There's Extreme Ownership, Dichotomy of Leadership, and then there's the newer one, Tactics.
Leadership, Strategy, and Tactics.
Yeah, that one. It has the green cover on it. And I remember I was running one evening and I was listening to that when I just texted Nick. I said, hey, listen to this one. I said, because it'll help you think more like an owner, because Jocko gives scenarios of dealing with employees and thinking stuff through and all that. And I said, that'll help. And it transformed the way you train people.
Absolutely.
Like Nick started training people like all of their success depended on him. And when the job was over, gives me chills. He came back to the office with them and he'd sit them down and he'd go over all their numbers for P so they would figure out, and he would say, okay, now, we didn't have to resolve any yellow slips, so we don't have to worry about this. We can just figure out our time. And the guys can all see how much the job was and the budgeted hours. So Nick was able to help them see how much they were going to make on projects and routes. And it's been phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, it's really great for them too. Just in that moment, just it's like you see your paycheck, but you don't see the value in each day. So when they see a day where they made like over $200, they're just like, okay. And
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it kind of changes this in their head. They're like, man, like if I can work hard every day, like I'll be bringing in good money.
Yeah, and you might hire somebody that's everybody's kind of I don't know.
And people can change.
They change.
It's the influence. Like that's what I love so much about this place, is that like if people are open to listen and like really take like what everyone's saying,
and can be humble enough to that when people are straight and speak it out to change instead of get mad.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's definitely a place where you can come in with no experience, and like if you're just willing to learn and work hard, you can grow. And I wish the entire world was like that.
Yeah.
And it is in a lot of places, right?
Yeah.
Obviously you can't just decide to be a doctor and like go into the hospital and start cutting on people. It's
exactly.
like, oh, I messed up this time, but I'll do it again better.
So for the people that are listening though, like if they're at a place where the whole thing is toxic, and if they've come to a place where they know they can't make a change, like they've tried to implement maybe a moments of appreciation or team meetings or building other people up, and it doesn't seem to make a difference, should they still lead from the bottom or lead from where they are and then internalize a plan and start planning to do something on their own maybe in the future, or have something outside of that toxic environment?
Are you saying someone from my position, like
as an employee anywhere, in another landscape company?
Thanks for touching back on this. I like the concept of thinking like an owner. I think is like the most important concept that should be applied to every industry, because eventually you will become the owner if that's how you think.
Right.
And you always should. It's like you need to be able to take more out of your experience at a job anywhere than your paycheck.
Right.
Because like if you're not learning, you're dying.
Yeah.
So
true.
Yeah, it really is. I think that's important. Everyone in every industry just think like an owner. Customer service people in retail, like everyone has bad stories about like bad customer service, but if those people were inspired and they just had the ability to like be like, okay, I'm gonna deliver this person extra value today because it's free, because I can just do that and it'll make me feel better.
Yeah, exactly.
If everyone thought that way, it would be incredible. So people getting stuck in the minutia that are just really like kind of in a rut where I was like, I was like, man, if I do want a franchise, like that's so far away, and like
I'm never gonna get there.
Yeah, my mind was just like I was not focused on the future, and I started to. That's when I started to think like an owner, and treat new people as if like they were my employees, and like just really give everyone the same spiel that like I was given, and like the same inspiration. So
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to start our day. Nick has a project today.
A
couple
couple.
projects. Yeah. So, thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for hearing Nick's story. And you can always go to the email below. We're always here. You see us online every day posting. Mike's posting. If there's more you want to know about the franchise, and you could definitely do it. I was doing some work for the franchisees yesterday, and I was thinking, man, if I didn't work here, I would become a franchisee. There's so much support that you can't fail.
Yep.
If you're a hard worker and you have the mentality of always learning and you want to be on this world to give some value to other people, you should be a franchisee.
Yep. Yeah, it's all about the value you can deliver.
Yeah. So thank you for your time. I was honored to spend the last couple of years with you. I know it's all going to change now, but we'll still be making a difference wherever we both are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You have an awesome day.
You as well.